Woman!
I want to cry.
You may, my friend, you may. It's been a long time. It is so good to see you.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. How are you?
I'm doing well. Do we get to dance the whole time? I don't know if people really want me to do that. We're going to have too many people clicking on and clicking off.
I know, right? Oh, wow.
Hi. Welcome back.
Thank you, and welcome back to you.
Thank you. So where do we even begin? Hello, everyone, by the way. Well, welcome back. We've missed you. We've missed us. We've missed you.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Tracy, so I see a couple people coming on. Please don't be shy. As you know, maybe you haven't. Should we reintroduce this thing? Like we really want you to eavesdrop, and not just eavesdrop. We want you to come in and talk, speak. We want it to be interactive. And as we're speaking, as we're talking, and you chime in, whatever you spoke about becomes the topic for that moment. so please don't be shy. Say hi.
We need stuff to talk about because
I know.
Shy.
Very shy.
We're really not good at coming up with our own topics.
Very shy.
Very shy.
So Tracy, really, I mean, how are you?
I'm well. So I'm wondering, Woman, should we, for people who are brand new to this and they're like, what is this thing? Should we introduce ourselves or should we reintroduce ourselves? I mean, I feel like I've changed in the last year.
I know. I got some gray, some gray hairs. I've changed too.
I'm there with you, my friend. Right
but no,
there.
Let's go ahead. You take the floor.
Yeah, so this is really not about who we are in title, right? But I mean, I'm just gonna give the full range. So I'm Tracy Phillips. Willin and I met back in 2019. Yeah, we were introduced through a mutual contact of ours. Sarah Madras, I think. Was it Sarah or was it Jenny?
Jenny, maybe, I believe.
I think it was Sarah originally, but Jenny, okay. I saw it at a networking thing, and then she was like, "Oh my God, yeah, you have." Or anyway, whoever it was, both those ladies, favorites of ours. We share them, and so we met, and Wilwin at the time was a business consultant. I am an executive coach, still am. I don't know what you're going to tell us what you're up to these days, Wilwin.
Hey.
But yeah, so we came together. We just really liked talking. We really liked sharing ideas and realized that there was something there and decided to go live for the heck of it when we went into quarantine, just because we were getting like, I wonder if other people would be interested in what we're talking about. And so, yeah, it wasn't even really podcast focused. It was just, hey, we're all putting our information out there. And sorry if you guys are hearing background noise over here. Okay. But so we have just continued to do this bi-weekly since then. It kind of took hold and we loved it and we got a lot out of it. And I guess we heard from people they were too. So, I work professionally with executives, executive C-suites. I work with visionaries. I also work with people who are entrepreneurs. They have their own business. But it's really understanding the visionary part that is my expertise, and that mindset and how visionaries are wired and how they're designed. And that really looks different when it comes to leadership. And that needs to be honored first and foremost by the visionary themselves. And so you'll hear me talking a lot about, different experiences within that realm. But I'm also a mom of one daughter who's 15, just started driving, which, holy cow. Can I just say, the dating part is not so much, the driving part is like, I think my husband and I flop on that. He's probably like, yeah, you just hold off as long as you can on the dating part. We're good with the driving. So both of us have it covered between the two of us. But And I live in North Carolina, originally from Colorado, but made it here to North Carolina through a few stops along the way at other states. But big traveler, outdoors enthusiast, love people and love talking. So I'm in a good place. I'll turn the mic over to you, Owen.
Well, I'm Walwyn. She said it. She said hers. I am a people's person. Love to extract greatness. Everything I touch, everything I come in contact with, I'm attempting to get the best out of it. I systems and software engineer in a previous life. I am opened a consultancy a couple of years ago. Worked that for a couple of years, working with entrepreneurs who were really seeking to create excellent business models. So I'm very good at building business models because everything begins with the fundamentals. Thereafter, for a couple of years, was in North Carolina, and then God said, "Hey, move to Liberia." So we're doing a intercontinental podcast currently. And I came here. So many things occurred, and I think that's why we even went down for a second or two, for a year rather. And I opened a media company here, a media for the mind. And as you hear, it is just to give things that would feed the mind, bring good things out of West Africa. Liberia is where I am. So it's an excellent time here. It's in the tropics. So if you see me do this, understand what's happening. But as Tracy said, we love to talk, and that's what we're about to do. So thank you for coming in and spending this hour with us.
Yeah, and you're from Liberia.
Yes, I am from Liberia.
Yeah, so he's home.
Home. Yes,
home now.
From North Carolina home. So
the
let's
original
warm up.
home.
Yeah. So it's warm up time. Whew.
Yeah,
what's going on?
We're in the winter. You're not.
No, I'm not. So Verlin, my wife, she was here in December and she left in January. And she comes and she's, tank tops and all of these, tropical attires, and she's leaving. And she's going in a t-shirt. I'm like, "Where are you going?" She's like, "I'm going back." I'm like, "What are you wearing?" She's like, "Oh." So she had to bundle up. So yeah, right in the tropics, 95 degrees and pumping, high humidity, but it's good.
It's good for the skin. Yeah. Well, I was going to say, and it has been colder than typically, it is at this time of the year here in North Carolina. We actually had a cold snap there around the holidays. It was literally freezing.
I heard.
I mean, for me, it kind of is hard to be in the winter without snow. I mean, growing up in Colorado. Winter snow, like winter skiing, like that's what you did. So, I mean, it's been a bit of adjustment for me, being here. So I don't mind the cold. I don't like the frozen pipes.
Keep them open slightly. Keep them open slightly.
We're not really here. I mean, we, meaning North Carolina, like we're really not prepared for really cold temperatures. So, you got the plants dying outside that aren't supposed to die, and you got your pipes freezing, and fun. But yeah, change. So that's kind of, things are changing. Weather's changing.
We are changing
in our lives.
I know. So what has happened in the past year?
I knew you were going to ask me this. Like, I have to consolidate the year,
you know what we can do? I'm pretty sure over time, next week after next, we will unpack another thing that has happened, and we will say, "Oh, you know what happened 6 months ago?" and da. But just give us a high level, and then we'll dig in the future.
Yeah, whatever comes first, like whatever comes to mind. Yeah, so the last year, 2022 was really a great year. I mean, my intention, which how everybody starts the year with like a word,
Yes.
I've got a few. My main I guess I'd say my main word is trust.
Okay.
Really focusing on that because, in my mind, trust is not earned. Trust is a decision. So you're either going to decide to trust or you're not, right?
Mm.
And so really that piece of what does it take to trust? And I trust in myself more than anything, because I mean, that's where it starts, right? Like when we are challenged to trust others, it's because really there's some aspect of ourselves that we're not trusting completely. And so, this idea of trusting that I have, this brilliance like we all do within me, and that it's valuable, and that it's worthy of the time and effort and energy, right, that I go into putting it out into the world. But it's also worth something in return. And so my second, it's not really word, it's set of words, is reciprocal relationships. I think I've been hearing this a lot from other people. It's like some of us, especially those of us who are ultimate doers, we just love doing for other people. And I think we've gotten, to a certain point where it's like, we're not doing because we expect anything in return. But when you've created a number of relationships where you're just always the one doing for people, and then, you kind of find yourself sometimes in these spots where like, God, I don't feel like I'm in a partnership. I feel like I'm doing all the work, you have to, what am I doing? Allowing for teach people how to treat us, kind of thing. And where is that not serving relationships in general in my life? I mean, I'm also not giving other people room, right? I mean, how many times when we're doers do we have a hard time receiving? I know we've had shows about that before.
True.
The ability to receive, the art of receiving, and that's a lot of times why we're not getting what we want, is because we don't know how to receive it. People are trying to offer it, and unbeknownst to us, we just keep, no, let me do for you. And we're so trained for that. So it's, keeping it front and center of saying, this is really what I want. I want reciprocal partnerships. So I have to think about what that takes to create that, right? Decisions I make about the people I allow in my life, and how that works and how I interact in those relationships is really important. So, and then my final word is expansion. And 2022 really set me up for expansion. So a lot of changes. My business took on some new focus points towards the end of the year. I collect people, especially visionary people. Like a lot of times I tell people the reason why I like to work with visionaries is they're my favorite people to hang out with.
I
Right?
love what you said. Collect people.
I collect people. I do. I've done that my whole life. It's like, ooh, you're special, and ooh, you're special, and you're special. And I think, as a visionary myself, one of the things we're really good at is connecting dots, connecting ideas to connecting people. And so I'm a natural connector, right? So I will hear and get to know, and I'm reading people, right, on a variety of levels as well, and where their zone of brilliance is. And I'll plug them in when I hear that could be, a vital resource. And so I can't help it. It's just the lens through which I look and what I do. And so I started to kind of, put together in my mind these certain resource partners I've been working with, or some of them I've just recently met. And we all do things a little bit differently, but we all work with the same ideal client.
Correct.
And I reached out and I said, you know what? I would love to put together like a band of super friends. Like we not only refer each other, but we work collectively, right, with clients. Right. Yeah. So where could we start to talk about that? So at the beginning of this year, we met just recently, and we're starting to put together a model and some ways to actually collaboratively approach clients, work with clients, find ways to think as a team, not just as an I. So when you were saying, off air before we went on that, maybe previously monetarily we were making so much on our own.
Correct.
Once we start to come together, I always look at the financial as a mirror to the value that we're putting out, right? So if we're making more money, that means we're giving more value. True. And, it's not just the value, it's how we put it out there, right? How do we want to do it? And our sandbox analogy has been something that's been on my mind a lot is, that play, and it feels like play with these people. They're high-minded, they're incredibly brilliant, they're visionary, and because of that, they're approaching what they do and the way they do it very differently, which is what this time needs. We need different models. Our paradigms are dying.
Yeah.
And we need to replace it with something new that is going to be current and meet the current needs and the changes and the shifts that we have upon us. And so, it's just kind of been, I'm always in mental model mode in that regard, but a lot of it's around people. And so that's really exciting because that's been something that I've been watering and cultivating throughout 2022. And so now we're actively in that place of planning and seeing how this can come together, but it feels like play.
Yeah.
And for once, I can really be in my lane. I've oftentimes been the person that people come to like, oh, Tracy can do it. And I always tell my clients, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Visionaries, we can do a lot of things, but we don't do a lot of things really well. We do a few things really well. And the more we can do those things and just those things, the more joy we have in the work that we do and the engagements that we're in. And then, of course, we emanate, we what's the word I'm looking for? That joy comes across and emanates into all things and all people, that we're engaged with. So yeah, I feel more settled too. I'm a very high energy person and my mind has never really ever stopped because I just have ideas constantly, but my heart feels more at peace. My heart feels more centered. I feel more centered. Maybe it's age and I'm just slowing down. I don't think so.
No, it's not.
Not my story. But yeah, if I were to like say in a nutshell what 2022 is, it's been a year of cultivating seeds that I've been planting over the last 5 years, probably, I'd say.
Yeah.
And a lot is starting to sprout and some things are actually starting to bloom.
Yes. Yes. Wow. You as you were so we're on the segment, what's been going on in the past year when we weren't on the air. And I believe my 2022, we started with COVID, I believe, and if you remember, the last show was horror.
Yeah.
And that was a precursor to a lot of things just changing in my life. February, by March, I was out of the States in Monrovia. I was looking for the space for us to do this and other things, because I do podcast production here, amongst other multimedia services, and it was so slow compared to how you would open an entity in another country, right? So it's kind of slow, and I kept my fingers crossed. Hope Tracy doesn't think I want to run away from her. And she was very, very understanding and kind of new. I think we talked about it, but I opened the businesses, left Liberia, went back for, what did I go back for? Wow. In graduations. Yeah, my nephew graduation. And stayed there for a couple months, returned in September. And as soon as I returned, my dad wasn't feeling well, and he passed away 12 days after. And I was so grateful for the 12 days. It was 12 days of taking care of him. And all of this is I'm gonna summarize it at the end. Dad goes, I'm fixing a house here, and finally things start to settle. Business starts to slowly pick up, and Tracy and I said, hey, let's restart. About a month ago, said, let's restart. We came in practicing, and here we are. So how would I put it? I would summarize it as, when my father passed, it finally hit me that even though I knew it, that I wasn't driving this. I wasn't driving this thing called life, right? Because if I remembered, my mom had a bout in 2018, and I came back to Liberia, and it was as if she was dying, but she did not. And what dad had was something that shouldn't even die, and he died. So there I am going, are we really driving this thing? Nah. So I think what we should do is not be anxious. One, uh, to understand that the place where you are is the place where you are.
Mhm.
You spoke about 5 years, things that you sowed 5 years ago, you're reaping now. What we're reaping, what we're sowing now, what you sowed a couple years ago, that's what we're reaping now. So you're where you're supposed to be. If you don't like where you're supposed to be, where you are rather, start retooling, right? Start tweaking, start finding, changing, that which you don't like in your sandbox. But I would say, summarizing, I've moved my hands off the wheel, and it doesn't mean that I'm not doing, I'm not present. It means that when I plan and execute, whatever comes out of it, I'm not anxious by it. I am taking it and saying, you know what, this is what it's supposed to be. But what I'm going to do now is, if it's not my outcome, retool.
Mm.
Retool. So, I put, and I close with this, and punt back to you. Every when I put uh, a a blurb about the show, and the blurb was, we've noticed on Eavesdrop that everything that we're discussing and talking, there are undercurrents with everybody who's coming in and listening. And I'm not going to say it's everybody in the world. No, it's everybody who's coming in and listening. Every single time we come in and we talk, individuals will come and say, yeah, that same thing's happening. Same thing. So birds of the same feather flock together. So you're flocking here. Um, you're saying, let me listen, but what we're discussing is happening to you. So move the hand off the wheel, trust, uh, and let's move forward. And that's the story, Tracy.
I love that. I love that retooling and trust. I mean, that, as we know, trust, I mentioned, that's a big one for me right now, and a big focus, like an intentional focus, because I think intentionality is one of our strongest superpowers as human beings. In fact, I was talking yesterday with a guy who is one of my resource partners and one of the team members that we're kind of this super friends team. We have to figure out what we're going to call ourselves. We don't really have a name for it yet. But he said, can we talk about your book? I said, sure, absolutely. He said, it came to me at just the right time.
Mm.
And he said, and he went into it. He actually is ex-military and did special ops and did a variety of things, but then ended up going in civilian life, created kind of a name for himself in doing security programs, creating security kind of models or processes within federal prisons to ensure that things were safer on the inside, right? So that, sometimes, these prison systems, there's problems with inmate fighting or guards and inmates, or, things start to go wrong, and you have to make sure that you have that security, that intel, right? And
Correct.
so he's an intel guy. He's a military intel guy by experience. And he said, and he recently co-founded or came in and started working with his father, is an fractional HR consultant company, all things HR, right, for companies that don't have that in-house. And he's also very visionary. So we have long talks, right? Like we'll get on, a chat, and like 2 hours later. But he said, I really want to talk about your book because, I started down this road with my dad, and I realized, I never really been in that arena before. I'd always worked for the government or worked for somebody, right?
Yeah.
Um, and he said that, going out on your own, it was kind of like you realize your ship is in the middle of the ocean and you can't see land. Talk about trust, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he said, I picked up your book and I started reading, and he says it was transformational. I mean, he started creating graphs and mind maps with the information. I was like, ooh, I might want to pick your brain on how you did that, because I think that could be great information for other people to use the book. But
Correct.
he said the timing was that. And what's blowing my mind is I've heard that from everybody who's come back to me to share their experience with the book,
Mm-hmm.
is that the timing, exactly what they needed at the exact time they needed it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
going back to my original point on the intention piece, is when I was getting ready to write the book, the person who approached me to write it, because I wasn't planning on writing a book in 2020, had said to me, I've been reading your work, and he says, I think that it's timely. You have a voice that people need to hear at this time. And, so my entire intention writing the book and putting the book together was that it would be written at the right time. In other words, fueled by the various things that I needed to, because again, visionary, we connect dots, we look into the future. We look at what's now, and we see what the impact is going to be later of what's going on now.
Yes.
And, to take that and kind of, you throw it in the water, but you have to get it at the exact time, right? So by the time it comes out, where is that time going to be where it hits? And it's going to be out, hopefully, for a long, long time. That's the plan, right? And where can it continue to be relevant, right? And so that was always on my mind. And so the fact that I used the word timely in my own internal intentions during the crafting of the book, that is the one word everybody's used with me who's come back and said the time. It was the timing, right? As you said, taking your hands off the wheel, we can't control that.
No.
I mean, we can play a role by being intentional and aligning our decisions and how we do stuff. The other thing that he said to me, and this is great feedback because it also was my intention.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote the way I read. If anything's more than 200 pages, I may or may not finish it. I'll just be honest. If it's on Audible, I'll finish it. But if I'm having to read it, I don't have the inclination to sit and read one thing unless it really, really is good, right? But you have to be really good. I find far too many books repetitive. They could have said in 200 pages what they say in 500. And that annoys me. And so I did not want to do that. And I wanted it to be succinct, but thought-provoking. And that's exactly what he said too. He says, I had to, I would read a couple pages and I had to stop and think about it. Yeah. So 200 pages took me equivalent of what 500 pages might have. And so I like that, because that, again, to the intentionality, that's why the book was put together the way it was. So it just reminded me of that power of intention, is that when we choose and seek, to create something in a certain capacity, that is how it's received, right? In that same, right? If it's meant to be succinct, it will be received as succinct. It's that value to value, right? So that was a good reminder.
You said something, and I wrote it down. You said, excuse me, you wanted it to be timely.
Mm-hmm.
And every person who's approached you have said, oh my goodness, it's such a timely piece, right? The way we birth things, the state we're in, what we are. This thing is so spiritual, it's not funny. Mm-hmm. That's why it's so important to listen to what you really want to listen to, because be it music, be it a book, you're taking your spirit and you are creating. And here you are creating something, and you're not in the right state of mind. I'm not going to call the artist's name, but her music is depressing. Mm-hmm. And my daughter was listening, and we're like, there's something about this music that's very depressing. And no, it's not. No, it's not. Long story short, came out, she was depressed and da 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 da. I was like, so everything you're receiving from that, from the
Energy.
songs, that energy, that everything she poured, she birthed it. She birthed it. Now, it's
Mhm.
spiritual. When you birth these things, these things come with strings attached, and we pray it comes with
Mhm.
positive things, right? So
Mhm.
there you are birthing something, and you saying, I want this to be timely. I want this to be relevant. I want it to be succinct. Um, to our eavesdroppers, and I see, hey Carl, how are you? There are
Hey,
six.
girl.
There are six people on, and Carl is the one who is who braved it and said, "Hey, I'm back."
And we are glad you're back, Carl. We've missed you. Hey,
Hey,
Carl.
thank you, man. Thank you, thank you. You know, you're saying, "Uh-oh, Carl, you started it. Love the new look. Thank you. We really appreciate it." Emma, how are you, dear? Welcome and happy New
Aw.
Year.
Hey,
Carl, you
Emma.
started it. You started it. But no, the things that, and please comment on what we're speaking about. The things that we, when we're creating, it is so important to get in the right frame of mind in
Mhm.
anything we're creating. In anything you're creating, when you're writing, you're exercising something that will create another aspect or another representation of you, because everything we create is a representation of ourselves. We're birthing. You birthed a kid. You and the kid came, and Jeff and Tracy made beautiful lady. Walwyn and Verlin made jazz and Walwyn. So what we when we are in that creative mode, protect your space, right? Don't be, and this is me, that's me. Don't be a trash can. Don't receive people's trash. Don't
Mhm.
receive their negativity about what you're starting. Don't receive it. You have the power to not receive.
Mm.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Oh man, you are just wow, like the bombs dropping. I tell you, the power of words too, because we've talked about that, just words, because everything's energy, right? So the energy through which, like you said, that spiritual aspect, energetics of everything is really important to remember. The energy that we're creating something in is the energy that people will receive it in. And if they have to move things around to recreate that because it's coming out negative, and they have to, and again, I pause a bit to say negative or positive, because like even in music, if somebody's birthing something from pain and anguish, they're releasing it, and they're releasing it through their music. And sometimes that can be almost like a doula for other people who are trying to release the same kind of energetic pain, right? The energy vibration, the vibration of
True,
their pain
true,
is the same as
true,
the person who created the
true,
music. And so sometimes that can be a birth canal for their own pain, and it helps them to not feel so alone in that pain. So,
true.
I'm always very careful that when people are listening to, whether it's music or watching television and negative things, but it's all about choice. It's about recognizing where your energy is and where your energy desires are, right? Do you
Correct.
desire to stay in that vibration? Do you desire to, because sometimes people, again, back to the play concept, people want to play in different vibrations. We want to feel
Mhm,
all of the emotions for a variety of reasons.
mm,
And so it's not just good vibes only, unless that's what you choose. I mean, if that's your choice and that's what you want to live in and that's what you want to radiate and that's what you want to create through, then yeah, by all means, be aware of that.
mhm,
But
mhm,
I feel that what you're saying is so potently important, right? Is to remember
mhm.
that everything is energy, and it starts here. I think a lot of people, it's this idea of I react or I respond to other energy outside of myself, but really we get to choose. I mean, not
Ah,
always at every moment, who we're
yes,
around or what we have to take in, but in
yes.
general, we can also change narratives around things if we need to change the vibration of how we take it in. There's
Mm,
tools and strategies that we can use to shift energy, but if we're not aware of that, if we're just
Hmm.
kind of on autopilot, our energy will morph to the vibration of the energies around us.
Yes. Yes.
And so then we're creating unbeknownst to us in that same energy. And if it's not something we want to be creating from or want to be in, then we're the ones that need to shift that.
So
And
Heather, Heather,
so, yeah.
Heather just said, I definitely do not want to feel all the emotions.
Is that, oh God, Heather. Wow. Yeah, girl. Yeah. I know. I hear you. Wink, wink,
Yeah,
nudge, nudge.
yeah. I mean, but just what you were saying, true, positive or negative, putting it in a box, whatever. But with us being here is us talking about, we're rolling with the positive. Did you notice something just now?
Yeah. Did it get dark there at home? Because you're in the
So
evening hours.
the electricity just went
Oh, we were talking about that.
boom. And what did I tell you I was going to do? Da, 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 da,
You can
da,
start doing the
da.
puppets in the background. You do
You
your little
see
shadow
it turned up.
puppets.
So and this is what we do in the sandbox, y'all. We prepare for whatever is coming down the line. There you go. Yeah, perfect, perfect. Um, uh, you know what? This thing happened. Let me talk about it a bit. Nothing should stop us from doing what we're supposed to do. When I was preparing for this, I said electricity might go, so I'm going to make sure everything's on battery, everything's ready, so that when it does go, I'm not panicking. Now, if the battery from the laptop goes, I already have my phone ready so that I could just get in there, and I'm going to take this phone and go out in the yard, and we will continue this conversation in the yard without any of the fluff that I would do with the computer here. But so when you're creating, think about, so my background is software and engineering. Think about business continuance. How can
Mhm.
you continue your business in a place, in wherever you are, and say that these assumptions might occur, and you start to put those mitigations in there so that your business continues. So I'm going to stop there now. I'm going to go back to creation, right? So where was I? I have gone down a tributary that has
No,
lost me.
that was a good one. Can I actually add something to that? Because
Please do,
I mean, I
please
think
do.
that was a little side, rabbit hole that we were meant to go down, obviously. Because I was talking to a client about this recently, because I mean, the beginning of this year is very similar in some ways to the beginning of 2020.
Mhm.
In just here in the United States, it's worldwide, I think, in a lot of ways, but just, with the economy being what it is, we just had huge layoffs, in some of the big tech companies, and of course that's worldwide, affects people worldwide, at least who work for those particular companies. But it affects, I mean, this is the thing about big business, it affects everybody. It's a
Correct.
trickle down effect. And we tend to focus so much on the story of that, right? Oh my gosh, thousands of people losing their jobs. And it reminds me of early 2020 when, we were all told to go home. And if you weren't an essential business, in some cases, your business
Mhm.
literally stopped, right? Brakes
Yes,
on. And I remember I was getting ready to onboard 5 new clients and they all decided to pull back.
I remember that.
And then my husband in the same week was laid off. And I remember that same kind of pivotal, like, okay, now I'm the breadwinner. And we don't talk about uncertainty. We're not sure what's going to happen because I'm not an essential business either. um, but at that time, none of my clients were essential businesses either. And the ones I had been working with were like, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm working with you. I'm going to find a way to me, you're essential because my headspace, I need somebody to keep me on
Yes,
the straight and narrow during this challenging time. And this is what leadership does, right?
correct.
It's leadership and pressure. I mean, that's what I say. I work with people during times that are high, in high stakes environments.
Mhm.
And so what was really cool is I now have the data points, but I was sharing with this new client. I said during 2020, every single one of my clients, none of them were essential businesses, all grew between 20 and 40%
Hmm.
by the end of the year when we were looking at the numbers. Right. And so I'm not taking that on and saying it's all because of me. But what I am
Correct.
saying is, to your point,
Correct.
is that, when we decide, when we choose,
Mhm.
right, to create a narrative for ourselves of continuance,
Yeah.
right? You use that word, and I think it's a great one. That is the intention by which we create.
Hmm. Yeah.
And, where we can also look, plus I always have to remind clients we're visionary. That's when we do the best work, is during chaos,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
When things are chaotic, that's when we are at our best.
Yes.
And so
Completely agree. And did I tell you about the towel? Right? I said I wasn't going to bring the towel out, but it
you need your
is.
towel. Bring the towel out.
Ah, it is the fans off, and now I gotta. Ah.
Bring the towel, my friend. Bring the towel. Bring the ice cubes, the towel, like whatever you need. We are here to support.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! So what does 2023 have for you?
2023 is going to be one of collaboration for me, right? I love doing stuff with people. I
Mm,
love it. I do my best work when I'm working with others. And I even think on my one-to-one coaching, I'm not alone because I'm working with my client in
yeah.
partnership, right? So,
Yes.
I'm highly independent, but I produce through partnership,
Mhm.
right? That's something I've recognized very, very clearly about, myself. And because I don't, somebody was saying this to me the other day. It was my husband, actually, and it's
Uh-huh.
so true. He said, you have your lane of knowledge that you're very strong in, but you don't like to control. Like, so it's like if we're having a
Mm,
party, for example, it's a good example because,
mhm.
we have get-togethers. He is always driving the bus. I'm like, I
Okay.
do, with the details of stuff, forget about it. Like, I'm not your detail girl. Like, don't, I mean, high level details, ideas, the iteration
Yes.
of ideas and creativity. Yeah, I got those details to a point, but
Yeah.
like what it takes to remember, no. And so when it comes to putting all that together, I'm like, just tell me where to go and where to stand.
Mm,
Tell me what I need to be doing. I do not want to be the one in charge of that.
mm,
And
mm,
I think a lot of times that can be misconstrued because people who have a lot of ideas and, even visionaries themselves, they misconstrue themselves. They
mm.
think because they see it all, they're meant to do it all. And they're really not doing it best. It's far
Yes.
better to get someone who that is their lane of brilliance and to step back and do your high-minded visionary stuff and your connection of people stuff and your reading people and aligning them to the right position stuff, because that's what you're good
That's
at.
it. That's it.
But trying to do that detail grunt stuff in the day to day,
Mm,
not your,
mm,
and that's why, in visionaries can really, because they don't trust their vision to just anyone, they can end up spreading themselves in ways that make them
yeah.
actually far less valuable to their own company.
Yes. Yes.
So
So
yeah.
here we go. Cara goes, the greeters in Walmart don't even say welcome anymore. There were times when I wasn't at my best when I walked through the door that made my day. If the world only knew how important everyone is, we would do so much. We will be so
Oh,
much
that's
better.
such a good point. There's a reason those
Yes.
greeters were there to begin with, Carl. That is, and we think about it as a small thing, and it's not.
Yes.
It's
And it's
not.
not.
Each role, when it's played, it can make one person, like you pointed out, can make a difference in someone's day.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. And you say that, Carl. It's the simple things that we're nudged to do in the day. Just the simple things. Telling somebody you look nice, giving a compliment, speaking to someone who may feel that they aren't seen. We will never know our importance until we we'll never know the importance of what we've done until I think when they open up the book and says, "Okay, Tracy, on this day, you smiled at Miss D, and Miss D lived another day because of your smile." I mean,
Mhm.
those things are happening. So it's so important that we remain humans, right? We have that human
Yes.
factor, remain humans too, and love and care.
That heart, you know, and that's coming up so much. And we see it in leadership and we see it all over LinkedIn now. You know, everybody's like, oh God, LinkedIn is becoming like Facebook. But really, I think what's happening is a world population where our hearts are waking up. We've been so in our heads for so long. We've so valued, you know, the IQ over everything. Like, how intelligent can we be? How can we control things to the nth degree through our intelligence? And
Yeah,
we forget that we don't connect human to human intellectually. We may think we do through ideas, but that's not where we're connecting, right? That where we connect is through our hearts. And so this, you know, empathy being mentioned a lot in you know what we're looking for in leaders, and what we're looking for just in one another, you know, much more of that. This is me as a human, that vulnerability piece that Brene Brown has been talking to us about since her work first came out about it, you
yeah,
know. And what does that really mean? It means that we have three brains, and they were all designed to help us do this thing called life. You know, the
yes,
head to strategize and rationalize and all of this, but the heart to connect to our why, our passions, our purpose, one another, you know, what drives us truly. And I think we're finally waking up to that space because paradigms are shifting. We can't rely on other to take care of us. Other meaning parents, government, you name it, right? Like our
yeah,
boss, the company
yeah,
we work for. Like
yeah.
these things can go away like that.
How can we expect about your comment on about LinkedIn? You know, it's changing to Facebook. How can we expect to behave as something we're not?
Yeah,
We're
that's it.
humans. We're
That's right.
humans. Humans
That's right.
feel. Humans tell stories. Humans
That's
cry.
right.
Humans interact. Humans. Uh, so
Talk
if you
about
tell
their
me,
kids. Humans talk about their kids.
talk about their kids, they talk about their pets, they talk about their ups and their downs.
Yeah.
Uh, and by the way, if it, you know a lot about this, and we see that the companies that are thriving in any and every era, the companies have been the leaders in those companies have been highly empathetic,
Mhm.
highly human centric, meaning they could really discern and had that understanding of interacting. And even leaders, the
Mhm.
leaders around the world, uh, have always been people who, stop to say, "Hey, are you okay?" and
Mhm.
and and stopping to say, "Are you okay?" to someone is it's way better sometimes than giving them $1 million, because
Oh,
you're
for
showing
sure.
you're showing that you're recognizing them, that they mean something. Hmm.
Yes, and I can say that where it relates to, and this is what we're finding out more and more, where it relates to workplace environments, right? Culture of companies, you know, is what makes up the dynamics of a good culture, right?
Mhm.
And you know, I was at so I'm a member of a group called ACG, and um, you know, it's all around corporate growth. And we had our yearly luncheon at the beginning of the year, which is typical. And there's always a panel discussion. And the panelists were all businesses who have thrived in the last 3 years, right? So it was like, what did you do, right? What
Mhm.
did you do? And what do you foresee we're going to
Correct.
need to do moving
Yeah.
forward with the changes that are going on? So it was a really great discussion. But one gentleman in particular who owns a company that kind of has two prongs. One is climbing gyms, right? People can actually go and climb. Others are building climbing walls in various
Hmm.
facilities. So they've got the construction component as well. And he said, I'm proud to say that we retained everybody during 2020.
Wow.
But we were closed. Right? We had to close our doors. We couldn't let people into the climbing gym, and nobody was really
Yeah.
building anything for a while.
Yeah.
And so he shared some of the things that they did. He said, we brought it all in just like you would with your family, right? We were all told to go home to our families and stay home. So we did the same thing in-house, protectively, right? And we didn't do it all together at first, but we were together. We were together on Zoom, and the leadership team brought everybody, employees, it didn't matter, janitor, everybody was on this weekly call. And it was like, okay, let's all brainstorm. How can we continue to be valuable, each of us, to this company? What do we have to bring to the table? How can we make these decisions moving forward together?
Yeah.
And, the one question he said that they asked immediately is, what do you all need? Right? Companies usually, when things, we just saw this in the tech world, right? When the company needs to protect the bottom line, what a lot of people are talking about is during 2020 and the years just prior to now, there was a lot of bloating in these tech companies, a lot of onboarding. So they were already heavy with people. So this is just a little bit, and don't get me wrong, if you're one of those people who lost your job, I'm not saying that it's, a good thing. What I'm saying is that it's not surprising. And, one of the pieces that in that question, what do you need? People got vulnerable. Well, I don't really know how to budget. I'm not a really good personal budget person, but somebody else in the group was like, oh, I'm trained through Dave Ramsey's Peace University. I could do a training for the entire team on personal financial budgeting.
Wow.
And they spent their time doing these things, feeding each other, feeding the company, feeding each other, feeding the company, coming up with ideas for, keeping the vibrations up. What can we do when we can get back together? What are creative ways? They called every day. They had, everybody was responsible for calling a certain number of clients.
Wow.
To stay in touch. Like, what can we do for you? What could we, what do you need? Like, I know we can't open our doors right now, but we want to stay relevant to you. We want, we want to keep you as a client, that kind of thing. That's inspirational.
Yes.
Right. That's because at the end of the day, what he said is we invested in people. And we hear it all the time. But what I liked about the stories that I heard, it was in action.
Yeah.
It wasn't just people first. Companies say that all the time. People first. We love our people. We take care of our people. It's like, then you interview the people and they're like, So in action, and the ideas and he shared a lot of the actual things that they did.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
To ensure that what they were promising, which was that they would be there for their people, was actually being followed through on.
Wow. Tracy, just, we're in the dessert portion now. And you, as we are, and something I just, as we're growing into becoming, I think that's the sentence, as we're growing into becoming, I was about to add, becoming, entities, companies, corporations. But I think becoming is befitting as we are growing to becoming, as much as, in B school, we talk about the people, planet, and profit. And we had a discussion on this, a serious argument, a debate. And I always said people first. And I'm like, no, profit first. No, people first. And you said the janitor, without the place being clean, would you really enter that office? Without the place being swept, dusted, trust and believe that place is going to be so nasty that you would say, I'm not coming in there. No, really.
Yeah,
And
I'm laughing because especially in this day and age, there's a whole different level of cleanliness we expect. Yeah.
Correct. We always tend to say, the janitor or the security, and everybody's vital, like our fingers and our bodies, fingers better vital to this. Our eyes aren't better than the fingers, right? Or toes. But as we're becoming in 2023, I think I believe the human factor takes the people takes the higher on the pyramid. Um, and I can go between planet and profit on the second and third. They could switch up whatever, whichever way they want. But without good people working with you, you can't grow. You can't
No, and
grow.
you can't have profit without people and planet, right?
There
You
you
need
go.
to take, I think people and planet need to be in the same, like, number
The
one.
level.
Because if we don't take care of our outer environment, we're just spraying stuff all over the place. We're just throwing things in the waterways. We're just, we're not going to have it, this place. It's just like our home, our health, right? We don't have our
Yep.
health, we don't have life. Well, we don't have our planet, we don't have life, right? So we
Yes.
don't have people. So I think
Yes.
to support that, and profit will come when we take care of people and planet, people and environments. When we take care of our environment, when we leave our environments better than we found them instead of worse, right? The profit will come, it will follow.
Mhm.
And I think
Mhm.
that's the paradigm that's shifting the greatest, I believe. And it's
Yes.
not just that we as leaders need to take care of our people. People are demanding it.
Correct. Correct.
So there is
Correct.
no choice. People are leaving. I mean, I have clients who, again, they're visionaries, so they move around a lot. It's the
Mhm.
nature of
Mm.
us. We're designed to. If we feel like we need to stay in one place, that's conditioning. That is not our
Yeah.
design.
So Jeff hits us with hi Jeff, how are you, man? Good seeing you. Say hi to Tracy when you get
Say
home.
hi to Stacey Phillips, Jeff Phillips. Yeah.
So Jeff goes, we're between cleaning companies now working. Oh my gosh, the place is getting nasty, right? Carl goes, absolutely, because all of us play a significant role regardless of the pay scale. And you talk
Yeah.
about that. It's so important. It's so important that the security, the cleaning person, the cook, the CEO, everybody's in there for a reason. And we come into wrap up now. 2 more minutes. Tracy. Hey, go ahead and wrap us up, and I'll come in there after. And
Well, it is. I mean, it is just nice to be back. I mean, this is exactly what this is about, right? Is coming here, having conversations that we want to be having, and I think crucial conversations are my favorite way of talking about challenging conversations, because I think that this is a thing that we learn, is that all conversations are good, right? If they're crucial, then they're essential. We need to have them, but they don't
yeah,
need to be had in combative ways, right? A lot of
correct.
people say, "Oh, I don't like confrontation." Well, confrontation is not, challenge. I mean, it doesn't become confrontational unless you make it confrontational. And so I
Mm,
think, being less afraid to lean in and talk about these things, and talk about the things that are really on our hearts and our minds, and what we're sensing needs to be brought up, because, to your point of doing, smiling at that stranger, doing what we're called to do, that's a gut sensation, right? That's our intuition saying, I need to be doing this. We need to be comfortable with that. So that's what we'll be doing it. We'll be continuing in 2 weeks. We'll be back.
I'm telling you. Hey, we asked you guys to be here for 1 hour, and we are not going to go over an hour. Um, Continue to be a human. Continue to trust yourself first. uh, Move your hands off the wheel. Remember, as you're birth in the right space. As Tracy said, if it's the person that you want to birth and it's a birth canal for someone else, do it, but be in the right space as you create. We love you. I got to put this on. So Jim Benton says, position of learning. He's late. Excited to see us back. Thank you, Jim. Carl goes, great show today. Looking forward to the next one. We're looking forward to it. We don't even know what's going to happen. But hey, love you guys. Hey, Heather, great job. You too. Welcome back. Thank you. Tracy.